Hi everyone, it's Kirsten from Wellness Island Chronic Illness Coaching. And hi Megan, this video is my reply to your video. So for everyone else, I watched one of Megan's videos and they were talking about things that people say when you're out in public with a disability. And I commented, that this kind of thing happens to me too, and that sometimes people say to me, "Oh, you're so inspiring. I'd kill myself if I was in your situation." Well, yes, this really does happen to me. And I totally understand when you said your first instinct would be a throw punch. Sometimes I feel like that too. And you wanted to know how I respond. Well, the first time it happened, that was years ago, and actually I didn't say anything because I was just so shocked. I couldn't believe someone said something like that, and I had no idea what to say, so I didn't say anything. And then it happened again, and again, and again. And finally I realized, I need to come up with some kind of answer, to this. And so I started saying something like, well, you might think you wouldn't be able to handle it, but you'd be surprised at how much strength you have when you have no choice. And so that's what I tell people, and that seems to go over pretty well. And you also said, when people say things like this, it's kind of like they're saying, "I'm inspired by your existence because I've never seen someone like you." And you're so right. I mean, that is totally it. That's exactly right. In my situation, I on one hand, I kind of get it though. I'm in a wheelchair. I have an IV pole attached to my wheelchair. I have 2 feeding pumps hooked up to the IV pole, with bags of formula and water. And I have tubing coming from that into my abdomen. And I have this tubing on my face, which is connected to a ventilator so that I can breathe. And I have another tube connected to my urinary catheter, and I have hearing aids. And so I have a lot of medical equipment connected to me. So I get it. I stick out in a crowd. But comments like these, I'm struggling to decide how to explain the feeling that I get. The closest I can get to it is embarrassment. They make me feel embarrassed, kind of like I'm some awful, hideous creature or something that shouldn't be out in public. I'm not sure how to explain that. So I try to recognize that a lot of people just aren't exposed to people with various disabilities. Like you said, they've never seen someone like me, So I try to understand their reaction. And if people have questions, I'm very willing to answer them. I will also, if they don't ask a question, I will offer up information, because maybe they're too afraid to ask. And so I try to educate people a little. And I realize, that I don't owe anyone my medical history or anything. But, for me, I'm very willing to explain everything. And, that's just how I am. And so I try to help people understand. And then I want to talk a second about this issue with children. So children are so curious, and whenever I'm in public, if there's children around, which, a lot of times there are, they'll stare at me and they'll point and they'll be like, Mom, look, Mom. Oh, that's my Alexa going off. And, the mom is always like, "Oh, turn away, don't look at her, don't point, And this is an awful response. It just teaches the next generation that disabled people should not be looked at. And you need to look away because they're scary or something, and we don't talk about them, and, they should not be talked to or interacted with, and they should just be ignored. And so I wish parents would say things like, yes, I see her. She is disabled. Do you want to go over and say hi and ask how her day is going? Something like that. And over the years, I have had a small handful of parents who have said something like that. And so they bring their kids over, and the kids want to know what all the equipment is and what all the tubes are for. And so, like, I explained in simple, age appropriate language. And so, like, I'll say, when you eat and your food goes into your tummy, my tummy doesn't work. And so I have this special food and water that goes through the tube into my tummy, something like that. And the kids are always very accepting. And they're like, oh, okay. And I let them touch the medical equipment, and I'll disconnect the hose, from my ventilator up here and let them feel the air coming out and everything. And as they're exploring these things, I'll be like, it's really cool, isn't it? And they're always like, yeah. And they walk away saying to their parent, wow, that stuff she has is really cool. And obviously this is such a different experience for the kids, compared to the parents shushing them and telling them to look away and not say anything. You know what I mean? So, I really just think this is a big problem for disabled people. And another situation is, you mentioned about people being shocked that you can talk, and the same thing will happen to me with that too. So many people, I'm out in public or something, or even in my house, and someone comes to the door and they talk to my caregiver, they don't talk to me. And I have to say something like, hey, can you talk to me, please? I'm Kirsten, and you can see their reaction, like they're shocked that I can speak. And this is so similar to what you were saying, that you can see like a light bulb go on in their head. And so I really wish, there was some kind of like online course or something, called How to Interact with People with Disabilities. And I wish it would be like required of every single person in the United States, maybe a high school class or something, I hear from so many other people with disabilities that they have similar experiences out in public. People telling them they're brave for shopping for groceries, or good for you, good thing you're getting out, and, just disabled people living their life. So, yeah, this is a problem, and I wish it was different. Always remember, you're not alone in this. You're a warrior, and your journey matters. So keep going. Stay hopeful, stay strong, and see you soon.